Hey guys, happy Friday. Hope you are having a great week so far. Sorry I'm a bit late. I've been having a bit of a hectic week so far, so apologies for the delay. Publishing this on Saturday. Just as a reminder, we're in July. The theme for this month is establishing boundaries and assertiveness. We're in week 2, and the theme for this week is communicating assertively. Now, as we've progressed with this podcast, moving into the 3rd year now, there is some elevation in the level of skills that we're learning. And one thing that I've learned in terms of social skills, communication skills, is there are definitely levels. And depending on the type of childhood experiences or past experiences you've had or lack of experiences, you will have a different need for skill development in terms of social and communication skills. There are definitely many podcasts which have excellent discussions on those baseline foundational skills, but the higher level social communication skills which gets more into excuse me, losing my voice again today, influencing, persuasion, presentation management, reality, shaping or framing reality, building alliances. These kinds of things are more higher level, right? And one of the podcasts that I'm sharing with you today is called How Communication Works. As always, we're just going to listen to a portion, but you can click on the link in the show notes to listen to this video in its entirety. I've selected this because in communicating assertively, one thing that we really need to make sure that we do is to block up the holes in our boat, so to speak, so that we're not leaking, aka communicating messages non-verbally or even verbally that we don't intend to be communicating, particularly as that relates to your level of power, your level of comfort with yourself and your ability and willingness to take up space. This matters because this is, again, one of the ways in which we're teaching the world how to treat us, by how we treat ourselves and how we present and carry ourselves. And so someone who is carrying themselves and communicating from a more not authoritarian, but authoritative, grounded place is naturally going to be coming across more assertive. The people that we're communicating with will, by default, understand that we have a certain level of boundaries and confidence. Excuse me again. And this is going to impact not only our relationship with them, but with others as well. And so it's so important that we go to catch some of the blind spots in our communication patterns. And so in this talk, you might be surprised at some of the points that he brings up in terms of how to communicate powerfully and assertively without going too far and without selling yourself short. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out this talk.
In this video, I'm going to tell you how to speak powerfully and assertively. I'm Bruce Lambert from HowCommunicationWorks.com. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. In the last video, I talked about politeness. Specifically, I talked about the relationship between power and politeness, and social distance and politeness, and ranking and politeness. But I just want to focus on power today. So the general rule in politeness is the more powerful the speaker is in relation to the listener, the less politeness they have to use. And there's an inverse version of that rule. That is, the less polite someone is with you, the more powerfully you'll perceive them, because we can read back through these expectations about power and politeness. So if someone uses a lot of politeness to us, they're being very deferential, and we can tell that they're bowing down to us with their words. They are deferring to us. So the example I often use is that in Japanese culture, for example, people actually bow. People actually bow to one another as a show of ritual politeness, ritual deference. So in the United States, we don't bow to one another. We show deference in other ways. We show deference verbally by saying please, by hedging, by beating around the bush, by being indirect, and doing all sorts of this other verbal deference. But nevertheless, we are showing deference. This was driven home to me in a study I did of pharmacists trying to talk to physicians. I gave pharmacists a task where they had to recommend a drug to a physician who had made a medication error. and they had to recommend an alternative. And most of the pharmacists simply wouldn't do it. They were too used to deferring to physicians. So instead of saying, I recommend drug X, they said, would you maybe think about trying drug X? Or they say, drug Y might not be such a good choice. So they would play all these games, deference games, to show their deference to the physician. In effect, they were bowing to the physician, but bowing verbally, not bowing physically like the Japanese might bow to show deference. So the key to speaking powerfully, ironically, is don't be too polite. Politeness is perceived as deference. Politeness is a form of verbal ritual deference. So assertiveness is the opposite of that. And power is the opposite of that. One of the ways we show power is by not showing verbal deference, not being too polite. So when you have a request to make or an offer to make or anything, we have to say something. If you want to be perceived as assertive and powerful in the situation, don't use too much politeness. Be direct. Say it as directly as you possibly can. That means no hedging, no indirectness, no beating around the bush, no apologies. As direct as you possibly can. Think about the thing you have to say and think about saying it as directly in the most unvarnished, unadorned way that you can. That is the most powerful way you can say it, because the less politeness you use, the more powerfully you'll be perceived. Because people know the rule about power and politeness. So when you refuse to use politeness, people will assume you must be a powerful person who doesn't need to use politeness.
Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed a short portion of this video that we've listened to. Again, I do highly recommend you check out his YouTube channel. He has plenty of excellent videos with lots of great content for different skills, building different awareness on this topic. And so if you're in the process of developing these kind of skills, social and communication skills, I highly recommend you check them out. But now let's take a look back at what we actually discussed today in this talk. Communicating in a way that is conveying to others your level of power, your level of comfort with yourself, your level of grounding. This can be challenging for trauma survivors because by default, unless we have gone through substantial trauma therapy, somatic work, and have sufficient resources, normally our bodies have been a bit impacted by the traumatic, difficult experiences or levels of stress, for example. Carrying this trauma and stress within the body causes us to behave in certain ways that is interpreted by other people as either a weakness or vulnerability. In the case of a social predator observing you, then that's how they're able to target you, one of the ways, because of these unconscious behaviors and ways of carrying ourselves. When that comes through our body language because of the trauma and stress that has been stored in our bodies. And so it's important to gain insight into the blind spots, such as over politeness, people pleasing, showing too much deference and submission in a verbal sense, not bowing, as he mentioned, in a Japanese sense, but even doubting ourselves. And it takes time to learn when you're coming across as someone who is doubting themselves, because you're just in the habit of expressing yourself as you have been doing, which unfortunately that programming is a bit faulty, so it requires us to go back and do some work to become more effective and powerful communicators. Still something that I'm working on myself as well. And the thing that I found is that it really does take a lot of repetition and refinement. It's a process of continuous improvement. Even this podcast has been helping me in terms of how I can practice improving how I speak, gaining perspective on how I come across by being able to listen to these episodes or the videos. And then I'm able to tweak and make some changes and gain a better understanding of how I come across to other people. And so, as we're working this month on establishing boundaries and assertiveness, I also want to make sure that we're developing the internal source of power, self-worth, and self-respect and self-esteem that allows us to behave in ways that are more befitting of our actual worth. This is also, if you think about it, a performance of your self-worth, a demonstration of your self-worth. Now, it's not saying some people actually really do believe that, they have a higher inflated self-worth, and so they tend to look down on other people who they consider less than them, to try to dominate or abuse, or like these social predators, these bullies. Normally they have their own problems as well, but there are some people who just do that because they believe that they deserve that. And it is an expression, a communication of someone's perspective of their own self-worth. That is one of the realities of the world that you might not have been taught or nurtured or guided through. And so when you take the opposite side of that coin and you are too differential, too submissive, you're not really allowing yourself to be seen. You're not really stepping into your boldness and authenticity that would allow others to respond to you more effectively, more engagingly, in a more desirable way, perhaps. And so as we work this month on establishing our boundaries and assertiveness, it's important to know that that takes power. Both boundaries and assertiveness both take an increase in your own personal power. And ironically, by establishing stronger boundaries and assertiveness, you will further increase your own power, which will then help you to maintain and establish further boundaries as you see fit in your own life. So it's a beautiful cycle. We just need to get on the upward spiral. So as we reflect on some questions today, or I don't normally do that. Sorry, this is a Friday Fireside Chat. I got a bit distracted today, guys. There's been a lot going on lately. Good things, a lot of good stuff, but just a lot of shifts at one time. So it's been a lot to process. But thanks for tuning in today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, do check out the channel because he has plenty of other resources there, and other topics. I don't think I've actually covered or included one of his videos on the podcast so far. So definitely check it out if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to have fun this weekend. Most of all, that's the most important thing. Always, every single day, but especially on the weekend, how to have fun, despite all the stress, anxiety, pressures that we might be facing. It's important to learn how to have fun. Learn to see your reparenting as a game. Something else that I wanted to mention, just briefly, is though we're in this process of reparenting and putting in work continuously, consistently, which is required, at some point we do have to give ourselves the grace to start living. That was part of the reason why I moved from daily to once per week with a Friday Fireside recap episode. Because healing or getting better, seeking, can quickly become your identity. But reparenting is not really my identity. It's not the career path that I want to pursue for my life full time, for example. But it is a part of me. But you have to be careful because what you live, the habits, your behaviors, they create your identity. And something can be some task that you're chasing, such as reparenting, this process of feeling that you need to learn or master some skills that you're behind, that you're not good enough, you don't have enough knowledge, you don't have enough skills, whatever it is. It puts us in a constant state of searching, grasping, and reaching. And the secret is that we must behave as if we already have it. If you have a fear that you don't know enough, you have to eventually begin to live your life from the end state of the wish fulfilled, as we hear from Neville Goddard, Rev Ike, Brian Withers, and so forth. And so I'm in the process, as I mentioned before, I'm not developing this project as a way to give you a direct solution. I'm literally in the weeds with you guys, and I've created this to create a paper trail for other people to work on their own self-development journey, to design it on their own, and to really make it custom. It's not something that I can teach you how to do. I can just show you the resources that I'm using. And so I'm still trying to understand this as a matter of fact on my own journey. One of the podcasts that I found, the Adult Child podcast by Andrea, I had been noticing this last week. She's been saying that she had, by the way, it's this excellent podcast, go check it out. And she started this new somatic course, and she's been saying in the past year she realized how much more trauma she was still holding on to. Now she has a bigger podcast, a bigger platform, more things going on. more marketing, organization. I don't do all of that. I literally just post my own process because my goal hasn't really been to monetize this. But one thing I noticed, for example, if you listen to that podcast, she calls it like the shit show. Like, we're a shit show. I'm a shit show. And again, you're repeating that every day, and it's like that's a burning into your identity, you know. And so I would listen. I think I just thought about that last Saturday when I was listening to her Saturday episode, and it really made me think and remember the importance of the words that we choose, and even the frame from which we approach our life. And if you're spending your whole life every single day on reparenting, like if I did the episode every single day for the rest of my life, like I would not grow outside of that frame. Like eventually there has to be a limit, and at some point I also will put it into this project. I was excuse me again. I was thinking maybe I would stop when I'm at episode of 1,000 or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe before, maybe after. Who knows? But just keep that in mind as we're looking through that book, Reality Trend Surfing. In case you're not on YouTube, go ahead and check out the YouTube channel because I have a lot more content. I do a lot more readings, a lot more positive reminders. I've cut off most of the other social media just for simplicity sake. So check out the YouTube page for lots of other content because we'll be looking into reality trend surfing, which will allow me to expand on this idea. But in any case, guys, that's definitely it for today. So go have some fun this weekend. Enjoy yourself, and I'll see you again the next time.